All right, Lindsey, would you like to introduce yourself to the podcast and the people on the panel real quick?
Okay, my name is Lindsey Palaez. I am the owner, qualifying broker for Nest Managers Real Estate in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Nice. And what were you before you were doing real estate or anything of matter? What was your childhood like going up to like age 18?
Shitty. Yeah, it was rough. So I'm from Fayetteville, but I grew up in Eastover before it was cool. So it was a lot of farming, tobacco fields. Did not grow up easily is probably the nicest way I can say it. So as soon as I could get out of that situation, I did. But I'm from this area. I went to Methodist University, which is the local college here, and got my degrees. And then I moved to West Palm Beach after that and worked for kind of a pretty major real estate developer at the time. And that's really where I started my real estate career.
Okay. And did you just wanted to get into real estate, or was it more like you loved it ever since it just ever
Yeah,
since you
well, I
found
kind
out?
of fell into it. So I really always loved real estate. I have the one thing that we did get is the paper on Saturdays in the middle of nowhere. And there was a section of the paper where you would get the house of the week. Okay. So I always had to wait for my dad to read the paper before I could get the house of the week floor plans. And I would cut it out and I would take it to my room. And my sweet old neighbor, Mr. Turner, had given me at that time an architect ruler, and I would sit and reconfigure the floor plans. And so I have just these collections of reconfigured floor plans that I pretty much started doing from like the age of 8. So I always knew I wanted to do something with houses. And I love old houses. I have a few of them definitely over 100 years old. So that's really kind of my love language, is very old historic homes.
Mhm.
So I always had an affinity for old houses, looking at floor plans, renovating houses. But my degree is actually in marketing. And when I went down to Florida, I really was in the sales and marketing aspect of it, got into kind of operations, and then kind of came back here right before the bubble burst and got more heavy into the operations side. So,
Okay, nice.
yeah.
And did you whenever what advice would you give for like an 18-year-old that's like either trying to go into college, either do like a skill set or join the military, right? Because you say you did the you went to Methodist College for marketing, right? Are you using that right now, or is it more like, hey, are you more of a supportive college, or what side are you on that?
Well, okay, so I have multiple degrees, and I tell people technically I don't use any of my degrees, right?
Hmm.
Very highly educated, and going through school, I tell people that you meet people. It's always good to meet people. The people that I aligned with in college are the ones that kind of got me into my first job with the major developer that I worked for in West Palm Beach. They kind of called me. I was doing the marketing downtown at the Convention and Visitors Bureau for Fayetteville. So I was making $9.25 an hour. I was waiting tables at 2 restaurants, and I was happy to be living on my own, renting a townhouse for $350. Like, I was living the life right out of college. But I moved down there, and so I say your connections that you meet in college are important. It just, it depends. My husband, he's been in the military for going on 27 years. He
Wow.
came from South America, joined at 17, basically. And he's kind of worked backwards. So he has 2 masters now. Of course, he has his bachelor's and everything. But he didn't start like that. So I think it just really depends on what it is that you want to do, whether or not college is right for you. I think the traditional form of college is, going by the wayside. There's just so much you can do online
Yeah.
as it pertains to real estate. I think it's a great way to fund real estate.
Hmm.
having a 9 to 5 job. So you can get loans and secure those loans to help you start the process to buying them. But it just, that's such a big question with a lot of different variables.
Yeah.
That's hard to answer.
No, yeah. A lot of people, they say they're not a big aspect of, I guess, college, because it doesn't help with like their career, or like that's where they've been forced to go into, and you have a different opinion on that, which is good, because it's like you can still do you have any college debt at all from?
I don't. I paid it off. So the way I played soccer competitively for
Wow.
many years. I blew my knee out when I was 18, and that's kind of how I ended up going to Methodist, was because I had to figure something out. And I knew kind of the only way out of where I was to my situation at home was to go to college, right? Like
Yeah.
that was just ingrained in me. You're going to go to college, you got to figure it out. So I put myself through school. They gave me a crap ton of scholarships. And I did have debt coming out, but it wasn't that much. And I paid it off relatively quickly.
Okay. And what age did you start like trying to do? What age did you start getting your first property? Like, how did your first property come into play?
So I had one in Florida.
Mhm.
So that was, we'll show my age. So that
Right.
was,
You don't got to give your age.
so that was 2004. But I mean, I was making a lot of money in Florida too.
Yeah.
And then when I came back to kind of put things in perspective in different parts of the country, the job that I took here, what I made salary wise would not cover my mortgage in Florida. I ended up selling what I had in Florida, and luckily so, because the bubble busted, and all of that kind of went to hell in a handbasket down there. But then after that, I met my husband, of course, and
Mhm.
our first house was like $60,000. I had to drive into my garage and not get out of my car until I made sure the garage was locked behind me, because that was just the type of neighborhood that it was, and that's what we could afford. So that's really where we started, and that was about 2007. So yeah.
Okay. What was your plan during like the whole burst in like 2007, 2008? Like, were you making any decisions or actions during that time?
Well, I was freshly married at that time.
Okay.
So we just, he was military, so he had a steady paycheck. I had a good job. I had started doing operations here in Fayetteville for a company that I did primarily healthcare. So I had about 4 companies dealing in healthcare. And then I had taken over managing the operations for a 300 unit apartment complex.
Wow.
And they were down in the 40% occupancy level. So my focus there was to renovate that, increase that occupancy for that apartment complex. So I had a very stable job at that point. He had a stable job. So, but we were just kind of starting, and we lived very much below our means. So we just kind of started with that house, and then we started flipping houses a little bit on the
Hmm.
side, just here and there, not making much on them, and doing a lot of like live-in flips. So we would live in it, fix it, move, live in it, fix it, move. That's
Okay.
kind of how we started.
Nice. And
Yeah.
is that when you started like thinking about doing managing? Is when you did your 300 property, or how did that come into play? 300
Yeah.
unit.
So then we got to one, and we were like, we're going to hold on to this one because the numbers just really made sense. It was in a good part of town, a
Hmm.
decent part of town, and we were like, we should hold on to this. Um, I knew at that point eventually I would leave my job and start opening up my company, and so we said, okay, we have to have some type of retirement plan for me, because I'm not going to have like a standard 401k or anything like that a company offers, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to start collecting houses, um, one at a time. And so we had this house, and we had interviewed property managers, and we had realized that very quickly that we did not want somebody managing our property. And just in the questions that we were asking, what their kind of standard operating procedures were, how they were telling us they would manage the home. And so I kind of quickly identified, hey, this is something that I am familiar with. I do this at the apartment complex. I've put these operating procedures in place. there's a need for this clearly because everybody has such terrible reviews. Let me plan to open this up down the road.
Okay. And if someone wanted to get into property management, what are some things that they would need? Do they need to become like a real estate agent first?
Well, what are you in North Carolina? Are you
Yeah,
everybody here in North Carolina? Okay,
not
so
everyone here. They're like in different states, but
okay.
yeah.
So you have to check your state's rules and regulations. So in North Carolina, you do not have to be licensed to manage your own properties. However, if you start managing somebody else's properties, you do need technically to have a real estate license. But what I always tell somebody is, property management is extremely litigious. Um, Everybody is always looking, to sue or get one up on somebody else. And so just make sure that you are covering yourself, and having a license definitely helps with that because you keep up with the changes in the law and the legislation. So I find that very important to have that.
Okay. And do you need like 2 years of experience? And how long of a experience do you need to be for becoming a real estate agent to do managing?
You don't really. Our company is a little bit different.
Mhm.
I require my staff to have real estate license because they are. If you have a license, you're held to a little higher of a standard than just kind of somebody off the street answering the phones. But most management companies in the area do not require their staff to have real estate license. So you don't have to have a real estate license. You could just get a job hypothetically as a property manager underneath a brokerage, okay, for starters. So if you were interested in that, that is something that you could do, is just apply for like an assistant property manager job and kind of work your way up. If you wanted to look into starting your own, that's a way to do it. You could get your license, partner with a brokerage, learn the ropes, but you cannot technically start your own brokerage until you have either worked 2 years full-time or 5 years part-time. Then you have to kind of designate yourself as a qualifying broker. You have to have a broker in charge. It's kind of like a whole long laundry list of things that you got to do.
Okay. And for those who are like, let's say they're a real estate agent in, let's say, New Jersey, right? And they want to be a property manager in North Carolina. Can they not do that? Or do they need to become a real estate agent in that state?
I mean, that would be difficult to do. I mean, I don't know how you would manage. I know that there are virtual, I'm going to use like air quotes, like virtual managers.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that because unless you have somebody here that is able to walk the properties, photograph the properties, inspect them, local people, I don't know how you crack that code and effectively do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are some tools that you would need to start property management? Let's say like, hey, I got my 2 years, right? I can start my own brokerage. What do I need to basically start managing me? That's what I want to do. I've been in this town for 10 years.
Alcohol. No, no, I'm totally joking. It's not that bad. Well, first of all, what you definitely need to do is have a solid operating procedure manual. Just your systems need to be just kind of solid, just for lack of a better term. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong because they vary on their systems and their operating procedures. And then that's what gets you into a lot of trouble.
Mhm.
When it comes to the real estate commission in North Carolina, they're super tough on a lot of things, and property managers are always under the microscope as far as like audits are concerned, investigations. They're the ones that get the most complaints. So you have to make sure that your procedures are on lockdown, and that you're following them to the T. So I would say before you do anything, you make sure that you are outlining everything from the second that you come into the office. How do you turn on the light switches, disarm the alarm? Where does the trash go to? If somebody calls and they are screaming at you on the phone, how is that handled? What do you say? What do you not say? I mean, we have the way that we operate is we have a book in our office, and I could get hit by a bus and you could walk in and you could take my book and you could run the company.
Wow.
And so we want everybody to be kind of cross-trained and understand that, hey, this is how we do it. Now, not everybody does everything, but it is written down how everything is done.
Okay. And for your, let's say like items that you would need, right? Like let's say employing some people or how do you keep that in track? And do you use a website like Buildium to keep track of all your properties? Like how does that work?
Yeah, so you're asking two things. So it just depends a lot. Now, when I started, it was just me.
Mhm.
It was me, and then I have a lady that she actually worked with me at the other company, Nancy, and you might have interacted with her at
Yeah.
times. So Nancy actually worked with me at the other company, and I have worked with Nancy for over 15 years. Okay, so
Wow.
so I brought her over, and she started with me here. So she's been with me since day one at Nest, and that's been 7 years. So I designated her as my broker in charge technically because
Yeah.
somebody needs to hold that license, and I could have it. But I trust her. So you need to have a broker in charge, and you don't want to be the broker in charge of your company just because it looks a little suspect. If you are kind of managing your own books, it just opens you up to a lot of questions.
Okay.
Right. So it's good to have somebody that's your broker in charge. Not that you can't do it. It's not illegal to do it yourself. It just is kind of frowned upon from
Hmm.
an ethical standpoint. Um, and then you do want to have some software in place, but I didn't put software in place until I got about above 50 properties. And then my spreadsheets got a little too much.
Complicated.
My spreadsheets and my QuickBooks got a little too much to deal with. So now we have Appfolio that we use. I mean, it's just an extremely savvy software program. For our processes, we use a program called Monday, and I mean, that's great for operating procedures. We still use QuickBooks. Our accountant and our bookkeeper use that. I mean, I could just go through all the different software systems that we use, but we have a lot of things that make our life easier as far as automation is concerned. But those aren't really things that, if you're starting out, you don't really need to invest that money in because you're going to be doing a lot of it yourself.
Now, do you think like, well, let's say regular people that are investing, do you think they should manage their own property because how easy it is now, I guess, with all the softwares and systems in place? Or do you think they should just get a property manager?
That is a tough, that's tough because you have to be a special kind of person to manage your own property. And it's a lot of psychology goes into managing properties and dealing with people. And, if you are able to separate business with relationships, and I think that that's great, then you might be capable of handling your own properties. But if you are going to be the type of person that somebody's going to call you and say, hey, I did not get my paycheck in time. Can you just let me slide? And you're the type of person that's just going to be like, oh, you've been great, I'm going to let you slide. Then that's probably not going to be what you need to be doing. Um, not that you're obviously a compassionate person, and not that property managers are cold hearted, but the one time you let it slip, what people don't understand is that you basically are nulling and voiding your lease agreement with them, and a
Mhm.
judge can throw anything out should you try to take them to court, like if you waive a late fee one time or anything like that. So
Gotcha.
yeah, and so it depends on you, it depends on you and how involved you want to be. Can you draw the line and put boundaries in place if they call you at 10 o'clock because they stopped up your toilet? Are you going to go running over there? Or are you going to say, why are you calling me at 10 o'clock? This is not an emergency. Get your plunger, you know?
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Didn't think about like the whole plunging and calling you at 10 o'clock. And
Yeah.
how do you screen your tenants? Do you try to like what is your aim? What are some things points that they should hit before you even think of putting them in the house first?
Yeah, so we have extremely high leasing criteria for our
Mhm.
tenants. Our minimum credit score is pretty high. They have to make 3 times the rent. They have to have no evictions ever that we can see on their credit report, no judgments, no delinquencies. If they have pets, we actually screen their pets. We put them through a separate software. We're screening their pets, make sure that there's no reported bites. That software gives them a risk level as well. So we're able to determine, do they fit the criteria for that house? What kind of pet rent should we charge for them? We're definitely calling and verifying their references. We're getting it in writing. We're calling and verifying their income because that's a huge source of fraud nowadays, are
Yeah.
fake stubs. So we're doing a lot to vet tenants in everything that we do.
Okay. And whenever you sign like a lease with them, do you have to get that notarized, or how do you start making that lease? Is it through like can you just print off any website, or do you like make your own like physically?
Please do not do that. Yeah, no. So we use we use the North Carolina Bar Association. They have drafted an actual lease for
Okay.
North Carolina that follows the North Carolina rules that the Real Estate Commission has signed off on. And then in addition to that, we have real estate attorneys who have put together multiple addendums for us, and those go along with our lease as well. And so those go through kind of everything from pet addendums to what we call kind of behavioral modification addendums. Like if you call me at 10 o'clock at night and it is a plumbing issue and I send somebody and it's your fault, you will be charged, right? So they initial on these things saying that they understand these items as well. So we send all that through DocuSign, and then it's legally binding at that point. But do not print things off of Google.
Okay. And how do you, I guess, how do you get the payments or any other source? Because let's say you're dealing with an old couple, right? They're like, oh, I don't have email, or I only do, I only do checks. I don't do Zelle or anything like that.
Yeah.
What are your ways of handling that?
Yeah. So 99% of our tenants are going to pay online.
Okay.
And we really push that. We write it into their leases that if they don't, we charge what's called a processing fee. And that's our time to take your payment, to drive it down to the bank, to go sit in the line at the window and to deposit it. But we do have some, older people that do not. So we do take their checks, but we kind of understand that and work with them ahead of time, but they're very, very few and far between.
Okay. And what's the, I guess, worst experience you had managing a property?
I have to knock on wood. We don't have a lot of terrible experiences other than when we inherit people.
Okay.
Finding dead people, that's never fun.
Okay, explain about that. Talk about that. So how does the process work if, let's say, someone died on a property, or just dead people on a property? Is that all
It
on you?
depends on the cause of death, how long, what's going on. I mean, that's going to be the worst, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you're going to call the authorities and have them come. We don't really get too involved because the authorities take over it. We always have next of kin information, but a lot of times we're inheriting properties, so we don't have that information. So we make sure to try to get that on the front end. We also closed on an apartment complex one time, and literally it had not recorded, and the night before it had not recorded, it burned. That happened twice, so that was also not fun. But we dealt with that, so you can sign your documents at sale, but until it actually goes down to the courthouse and gets recorded, it's not yours. And it had burned literally the night before.
That's crazy.
I know. So that was pretty terrible. But, a lot of what we deal with, a lot of our biggest stressors are just people. It's just people. It's just managing people, managing personalities,
Yeah.
calming people down. That's really the worst of it. We don't have terrible tenants that tear houses up. We inherit very torn up houses and we have to renovate those. But I would say those were probably our worst experiences to date.
So what's your best tip in managing people?
Screen them very well. Read a lot of books on psychology books and dealing with people. And, I tell my team, none of this is, none of this is, we're not on fire. Like none of these are just life-threatening issues. A lot of times you have tenants calling and screaming. You just stay calm. You just let them know you are not interested in having them speak to you like that. You give them a chance to calm down, and just take it from there. So I really try to instill in my team, look, just, it's not an emergency, stay calm, try to calm them down. If they cannot, let them know you'll end the phone call and they can call back when they're ready to speak professionally. So
Yeah.
that's probably it. There's no reason to ever really yell or scream in any of this.
And earlier you said something about facing legal stuff, right?
Oh
So,
yeah, very, yeah.
so like you become a property manager, you face, I guess, a lot more suings, a lot of people more suing your company. How does that like,
Well,
work in a way?
yeah, well, here's not, again, knock on wood, we've not been sued, okay? Because
Okay.
we cover our butts and we're very much protected and we do the right thing, but we are threatened that we are going to be sued constantly. So that's why I tell you, if you are interested in doing this, that you want to make sure that you have your checklist in place, you have your operating procedures, you are following everything to the T. And that's why getting your real estate license is beneficial, because you know the law, you know what you can do, what you can't do, you understand fair housing. All of that is extremely important in making sure that you do not actually get sued when it comes down to it.
Yeah. And what was your experience the first time? Do you have to call like the sheriff's office? Like, have you ever kicked anybody out of a
Oh yeah,
property?
we've kicked
Okay.
several people out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your first experience, was that, now I'm guessing now it's like, it's not that bad now, but like your first experience, was it
Uh-huh.
like nerve wracking? Like, oh, you got to call the sheriff. Oh, you never learned how to call the
Yeah, well,
sheriff.
it was years ago, and one of my clients had bought a duplex, which I did not want him to buy, in a neighborhood that I did not want him to buy it in, and it came with tenants, and we had to evict the tenants, obviously, because they were not paying their rent. So, we went through that process, showed up with the sheriff, but the guy had left. And that was great. So a few days later, when we were able, we went in to open and get all the stuff out. And it was just disgusting. So that was, I am very sensitive to smell. And that was a terrible experience, just based off of that and what was in there and what was growing and living in there.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, it was terrible, but that was it. It was nerve-wracking. I mean, you never want to kick somebody out, right? Like, you
Yeah.
never want to put somebody on the street, and you want to show compassion. And we do try to do that. We definitely try to work with people. Um, but there does come a time when, you know what, it's gone too far and you have to go, because our job is to protect our owner's investment and you are not paying your rent. So you have to go.
Okay. And with, I guess, do you, I know you're trying to get started into short-term rentals,
Yeah.
right? Is the process still the same thing, or how have you analyzed that?
We've started, we're not really marketing it, but we have over a dozen already. So it's the same type of thing, just systems and checks and balances. And that one's a little bit different because there's a lot more turnover. So
Mhm.
there's a lot more people kind of coming and going. They need a lot, that person that comes into a short-term rental obviously needs a lot quicker communication.
Yeah.
Whereas we can communicate with our long-term tenants, within a couple of hours. This person that's coming into a short-term rental wants immediate communication, like, hey, I don't see the Wi-Fi password. Where is it? You need to respond, within 5 minutes at 1 o'clock in the morning. So
Yeah.
it's just a different client.
Okay. Did you ever have like landlord problems before as well? Like dealing with landlords instead of like actual tenants?
We do, yes. We try to we try to be very just kind of open and forthright as far as like how we operate as a company. Sometimes that does not align with our clients and their expectations. We have let some owners go because of that. So I mean, it sometimes just doesn't work. Sometimes they want to be more involved than they should in contacting the tenant, and that just creates chaos, really,
Hmm.
because you have mom and dad kind of pitted against each other. Giving the tenant different messages, and the tenant doesn't have to listen to you, but they have the contract with you, and that turns messy. And then sometimes we have landlords that don't want to fix things that are mechanical. And then we can't have that because we are responsible for the house.
Yeah.
And then that's what opens us up to a lawsuit, you know? So yeah, we have that happen.
Okay. And from an investor side, right? What should the investor look out for whenever they're seeking for property management? Like, what are some indicators that they're a bad property manager and a really good property manager?
I think reviews are important. You know, going online and just looking at people's reviews. I mean, everybody's going to have good and bad reviews. Just looking at actually what they are. I mean, we have reviews on there that aren't even from people that we've had anything to deal, you know, that we've ever even like met or dealt with that have given us a terrible rating. But if you read through them, I think you can get a solid understanding with any company, kind of who they are, how they work, what they do. And then when you're interviewing them, I think you're going to want to ask questions about how they handle certain situations. And if they can't tell you step by step how they would handle it, then that's a red flag. To me, is that they don't have processes in place. So,
Okay, that's good. And let's say you do bring the property manager on, how do you know if they're not like, I guess I hear a lot of horror stories, right? Where the property manager is taking advantage of like the rent, I guess, and the person's actually not getting paid, like the investor. Uh, have you, I'm not saying have you ever had that experience, but like, do you know anybody that would have that experience?
yeah, I mean, that's absolutely illegal.
Yeah.
So depending on your property management agreement, it's laid out in that agreement how long your management company has to pay you.
Okay.
Okay. Once they receive the money. So you should be able to revert back to that agreement and see that. And we have had that. I mean, we took over an investor and his cousin actually owned a property management company and he had not seen rents for like 6 months and he had multiple properties. And you know, it's just one of those things. As property managers, we can't advise you on what to do.
Mhm.
You know, we can just say, hey, that's not right. We'll start fresh and we suggest you talk to somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've seen it. It happens. I mean, there's horror stories. We take over properties that nobody has walked through in over a year. And there's been people that haven't been living there. There's been squatters living in there. There have been complete just trees laying in the roof and nobody said anything about it. I mean, I could give you a long litany of examples of things that we have seen. So
That
it's
sounds horrible.
yeah, well, it is. And I think that's what gives property managers like a bad rap is stuff like that. So
Okay,
there's 2 property management companies last year, maybe 3 actually got shut down for like stealing people's money.
really?
So yeah, I mean,
Wow.
it happens. It's bad.
And how do you deal with like, I guess, competition with other property management, or is it like you guys just don't even talk, or do you guys like try to meet up and be like, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is work for you? I don't know.
Well, I don't think about our competition necessarily. Like I feel like we have a certain brand, we have a certain image. Like we work on building our company and doing the best that we can. So I know that there are companies out there that I guess in their minds are very much in competition with us, and
Mhm.
that's fine. We kind of get a giggle out of that, but it's not something that we sit and we're like, I wonder what they're doing. I wonder what we're doing. We just really focus on improving our company and our processes and just what we're doing. So,
Okay. And overall, right? Like either investing side or managing side, what's the biggest challenge you face in real estate?
oh, well, I mean, I think they're just different, right? Always is like, where does the money come from? I think for you guys, it's probably going to be like, where does the money come from?
Mhm.
Where do you get that money if you're not born to parents that will give you money? Like, where does that come from? Because
Yeah.
obviously you have to have that to start really anything. So I think that's always a challenge. And again,
Yeah.
people, managing personalities.
Okay. And people are going to ask you like, hey, how do you feel about today's market, right?
Yeah.
From a real estate perspective or any investment perspective. What's your opinion on it?
So I mean, as far as like today, or am I giving a prediction? What?
Both, actually. What do you
Okay,
predict?
so
What do you think the prediction is?
yeah, so I mean, I think that obviously the rates are projected to go up a little bit, which will
Uh-huh.
hurt some people. Okay. There was an article that just came out. I just read it. I sent it to one of my investors this morning, and Fayetteville is number 14 in the country for foreclosures. And, I don't know if you knew that,
I didn't
right?
know that. Yeah.
But why is that? It's because we have a lot of people that come here and they have VA benefits, which is great, but they are not educated on that VA benefit. And when they are buying a house, they are paired up with an agent who wants to sell a house. And that agent doesn't explain to them that, hey, you are going into this $250,000 new construction house out in Rayford that whenever you turn around and try to sell it in 2 years, it's not going to be worth $210,000, right? You're automatically upside down. So they're not teaching them about equity. And they're also not telling them that 3% is going to be added to their loan because of the funding fee. So I think that, the market here is a little bit different because it always stays relatively stable
Mhm.
because it's so transient. But it is a little softer right now. In the past couple weeks, our showings have slowed down. We're not getting those above ask like we have been
Yeah.
with these appraisal contingencies like we saw for the past year. But it's still pretty strong, I feel. I don't think we're going to go into like a massive recession where we're going to be scooping up these properties, like I did at one point, which was wonderful for like $30,000
Yeah.
a house,
Wow.
but it'll come down a little bit. But I don't think to that extent. I think where we should be looking is obviously, unfortunately, going to be like with the foreclosures, because a lot of these people who have bought these inflated properties are not going to be able to turn around and sell them. And then they're not going to be able to afford the mortgage. And then the rents will not cover the mortgage, even if they were to place somebody in there as a renter. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your buy box? Do you have a buy box, and do you have like a criteria that you want to meet?
I just wanted to make money. I mean,
Okay.
I I drove, I mean, I took a 30-minute drive to go look at something today, right?
Yeah.
And it would be a cash deal, and I am under contract for another um, deal right now, and it's extremely expensive. And but that one is going to be like two properties on one parcel in the middle of town. And I mean, I will more than probably by the end of it, like triple my money on it. So it just really depends on what it is. I mean, my favorite, if I have to come up with like my ideal deal, is like a little 2 to 3 bedroom house, single family house in like a Haymont area in Fayetteville, just because I can turn those properties so quickly. I love renting those. They're like 1,000 square feet. I rent them for like $12.95 all day long, and I usually get them for like 80 to 90. So
Wow.
yeah,
Nice.
and they're
And
solid. They're like super solid houses. They're not, kind of these crappy houses that have termite damage and wonky floors. Like they're brick, they have oak floors. They're solid. They've stood around. So
nice. And do
yeah,
you do you manage your own properties too, or is that like not a thing that you try to aim for?
I do, but they're not under my name. So,
Okay.
and I
And
don't personally manage them. Like my team will deal with them.
how have you set up your corporation? Do you have like an S corp in charge of your LLCs
Yes. Well, I have a trust, and then I have different LLCs.
underneath that?
Mhm.
Okay. Not, you don't have an S corp or a C corp at all?
Mm-mm.
Mm.
Just LLCs. Yeah.
Okay. And as a property manager, how do you help out your, I guess, your clients, or I guess like you said like before, like you don't want that one person to buy that house or that duplex and that cause you more trouble. So what do your clients do? Do they like, hey, what do you think about this property? Do you run the numbers for them, or like? how
Yeah,
does that
all the
work?
time. Like they'll send me, I mean, I get emails all the time, and especially the clients that I've worked with for a long time, they know me well enough that I'm pretty much I send them back no, right? Like, no. Um, and now they know what that means. The ones that I haven't worked with so well, I might say something like, "We will not manage a property. Um, we could not manage a property like this. We could not fill this property based on our leasing criteria because we have to be very careful what we say. The numbers would not make sense." But I do, like, I get shot addresses all the time, and I'm like, look, this property would rent for this. This property would rent for this, and then usually it is hundreds of dollars less than what they're thinking or what Zillow is telling them.
Okay. And how do you deal with contractors? Every time I ask this, everybody just the guesses always they just have like a big sigh. They're like, ah, here we go.
Well, so we have about 150 subs,
Okay.
and you know, I have some great ones. I will tell you, I have some great ones that have worked with us for many years, and I so value those guys and girls.
Mhm.
We would not be where we are without them. The rest of them are very difficult. And again, it's managing people. I mean, I could tell you horror stories like when my husband and I started out, like how we got taken to the cleaners, how we got stolen from. So we've learned some very difficult lessons. But what we try to do when we're running projects is we scatter our pay with the contractors or subcontractors usually, because everybody uses the term contractor very loosely, and the
Mhm.
contractor usually is the one that runs the subs and upcharges the subs bill at the end of the day. Okay. And in North Carolina, you do not have to have a contractor run your project unless it's over $30,000. So if you have a renovation under 30 grand, you could have one sub do plumbing, one sub do floors, one sub do painting, and you can call it a day. But when we're running renovations, we always take pictures. We're always checking. We're walking the properties, making sure they're showing up, not paying them upfront,
Yeah.
only, just staggering the pay because ultimately somebody's mom's going to get sick. They're going to have to disappear for the weekend. The second you pay them on Friday, you're not going to see them until possibly Tuesday. So you have to take all this stuff into account. And just checking the work. And then we are also we're putting stipulations in that if they don't finish by a certain time, we start deducting. So that's a big thing that we do as well.
Okay. And is that hard to find contractors that'll take a deduction if that happens? Or is that like, oh, we just found like if you ask that question, that's a red flag saying like, oh,
Well, it is a red flag. And when I say deduction, like it's all written out in
yeah,
that, let's just say that they're roofers or they're working outside. Like if it's raining, that's not their fault.
yeah,
Okay, if they go on a bender and they don't show up for a week, that's their fault. Okay, so obviously we're not going to pay them, and we're
okay,
going to start taking away because they're taking away from my client's profit.
yeah.
Because I'm not able to put somebody in the house, and then they're losing money, and so these people need to kind of feel the pain of that as well.
Now, what are some red flags you have for contractors?
Um, Usually, if they smell like alcohol, if they're
Hey,
pupil
you're honest.
dilated, if they're missing, like I have a lot. There's a lot of bad contractors in this area. I would definitely, you have to do your research. Cannot hire people off of like Cumberland County side job pages. Do not do that.
Mhm.
Um, ask them if they would be willing to submit to a background check. That's
Yeah,
always important. Google them. Um, you got to always just do your research, get references, call their references. It's a tough area here for
yeah.
subs.
What tool do you use so that do background checks on people? I guess that's what I'm.
We use the same tool that we do background checks on for our tenants. So we
Mhm.
just don't require them to pay for it. We just run them through it.
What would it be? What is that tool again?
Well, Appfolio has a background and screening process
Okay.
built into the software, so we just send them through that.
Okay. And what is it? Does it show like their credit score and like their, um, I guess, criminal
Everything,
record,
criminal,
everything?
everything.
Okay, nice.
Mhm.
And if let's say you're taking everything now, right? Let's see, somehow it's taken away from you, right?
Yep.
You have to start from day one again.
Mhm.
What would you do differently? Or what would you do now?
I mean, I would just start over. I know how to do it. If it was, I kind of live like that. I tell my family like this can all go away, like everything around it can all go away.
Yeah,
And so we have to. I feel like you have to live like that, and you have to be prepared for it to be able to just disappear. You have to be prepared for the market to go away and be upside down on things. So I try to take what I call like calculated risk. um I never want to go into anything where I'm going to be upside down. Anything I buy, I know that I can sell it the next day and make a profit no matter what I do. So I'm not out there trying to get 100 doors.
yeah,
I'm smart with what I'm buying,
yeah.
and I know that I can dump it if I need to.
You try to be very risk mitigated. I see.
Yes.
Okay. And what are some hard problems that money can't solve?
Time.
Time. Okay.
Time. Yeah, but money can solve that as well too. I mean, you can hire people to, take over your responsibilities so that you can have more time to yourself to do the things that you want to do.
Okay. Well, what is one piece of advice you'd give someone that's starting out in the field like entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on like what your long-term goals are. So my husband and I, we every year we do something called reverse engineering our destiny. Okay. And you could probably go and find this online somewhere. But what you do is you start at 120 years and in essence, you work backwards. So at 120 years, you say, right? You say, in 120 years from now, what is my legacy? Okay,
Okay.
so you think about that. What is my legacy? What do I want my legacy to be? And then you work backwards. So, okay, I'm going to fast forward through this for you because it could be long, but it's really a worksheet. All right, so in 50 years, what would you need to do in 50 years from now? What do you have to do to get that legacy? So in 20 years, what do you have to do to get to whatever you put at 50 years? And you really work backwards, and it goes all the way down to like, what do you have to do next month? And so when then you start reading forward, it's a complete plan to
Wow.
get you, yeah, to your legacy. And I think I would have started that sooner, right? Because I'm very type A. Um, my personality is just like work until I drop and end up in the hospital, right? And so I would have balanced my time better on the front end and thought about what is my legacy on the long end. But a lot of that has to do with my background, where I came from, wanting to get out of that situation, wanting better for my family. Like I had to, like I didn't have a choice. It was sink or swim for me, and I just thought the only way to do that was just to kind of bust ass for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I would just say I did not have to do that. I could have slowed down and thought about my legacy a little bit
I like
harder.
that. I like that. I
Yeah.
never heard anybody say like think backwards from like your
Yeah.
destiny. I think
Yeah.
120 years is like a little too long. I'll probably do like 100 or 80. Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
yeah, well, the worksheet, it's out there somewhere, and it's revert, and we make copies of it. It's just something that we do, and it just makes sure like our goals are aligned.
yeah,
And it's just reverse engineering your destiny or your legacy. And I think they do that so you really think so far out. You can't come up with specific goals that far out. Like, how do you want to be remembered?
yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
And uh, what do you think about like I guess real crypto stocks or any other sort? Because I know you're big into real estate. Do you do
Yeah.
anything else like buy?
I have some. I try to like convince my child to please study it because, it's one of those things that it's too volatile for me. Like we said, like I'm a very calculated risk person.
Yeah,
I have some, but it's not it's not my lane.
Mhm.
It's not where I put my brain power and my
Yeah,
thoughts.
it's where
Yeah.
you gamble at, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Kind of like play money, but I would love for my child to really study it and tell me what to do. So,
Okay, what do you want for your child to do? I guess, how is it a boy or a girl, and
oh,
how
I have two. Yeah.
too? Okay. Are they, like, in high school, like, college? What
No,
is it?
no, not that
I
old.
didn't say that. I'm just
Yeah,
guessing.
so I have an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Okay, and as a parent, do you want something, that you would like, or is it like, "Hey, whatever works with you, go ahead," like, what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, so I've just so we've just really just kind of like pushed our kids to like, again, this can all go away. They understand where we've come from, like where I came from, where my husband came from. Growing up in South America, we've traveled a lot, so we've showed them, how most of the world lives,
Okay.
and how they really do live in a bubble. And they both have their own company, and so they work within the company doing certain things.
Mhm.
To earn money and kind of earn their keep, and so they have options, but we definitely don't push it on them that, hey, this is what you're going to do, but we do want them to know like they have options. So
Okay.
one might do it, one might not. I mean, it's not something that we kind of shove down their throat, but we want them to know, hey, you have something if you can't figure it out. But they're just so young. I mean,
Hey,
who
you're
knows what they're going to do? I just
you're
want them
making
to
the
stay out of trouble. That's it. Don't make any bad decisions and just don't get pregnant or get on drugs and we'll be good. Yeah.
What's your, favorite productivity hack, I guess?
Um, I mean, I have a couple. I definitely designate my mornings. I get so much done. So I get up very early in the morning and I probably knock out more work by 8 o'clock in the morning than most people get done all day. Um, so I'm a morning person. Like I like to work in the morning. And then also blocking off my calendar is very important, so that I'm able to make sure that I'm getting certain things that I have to get done,
Yeah.
for work, or else my phone would ring and I would just be on the phone all day long with people. So blocking calendars are very important, for me, and just making sure that they're blocked off correctly so I can designate certain times to do certain things.
Okay. And what was the biggest struggle you had as, like, an 18-year-old, 26-year-old, like, at that age? What was the biggest struggle that you could think of?
Well, when I was 18, like I said, I was very poor and working and trying
Yeah.
to get through school. So trying to find something to eat other than wheat thins, which is probably a big struggle of mine. But I think 18. I mean, I think you guys are in a different place, right? So a lot of you guys are military.
Two of us here are military. We have a bunch of us in our group. We have, like, I think, like, 39 people, right?
Okay.
So we're all scattered in different things. Like, I know some of them do insurance, some of them they just do like just like random stuff, right? Door dashing.
Okay.
So it's just like business that we're trying to figure out. We're all trying to see what our struggles are and, like, talk about it basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, my struggle was probably more like mental and making sure that I did not fall into the patterns that I grew up in, right?
Mhm.
And I knew that I had to do better. And how was I going to do that? So my mind was just always working. And, I was just such an overachiever. I had to do the best, I had to be the best. I'm sorry, my lights just
No,
going
you're
up.
good.
I had to do the best, I had to be the best. And then it was just one of those things where I think it was just mental. Like I always thought at 8, especially at 18, like, who am I? Like, what am I going to do? Who am I going to be? Am I pushing hard enough? I should be farther along than where I'm at, even though I was 18 and in college. And, it's not coming fast enough. And I think you all at your age, of course, I am at
You gotta
least
say your
20,
age.
I am at least 20 years older than you. You know, you guys are more in a time now where instant gratification is stronger than it was when I was that age. So,
You don't look like you age, Lindsay. So that's a plus right there.
well, thank you very much. But I mean, I think that you all probably are, you know, in a different time now where instant gratification is even stronger. And so I can imagine that that would be more difficult for you guys thinking, hey, I need this now. I want this now. I gotta, am I
Yeah.
doing enough now? You know, am I doing enough now? Am I achieving enough now? Am I where I should be? And
Do you have anything that you I guess do you have like FOMO or anything like fear of missing out on like because I know you're staying in Fayetteville. Do you ever think of like just leaving Fayetteville, going somewhere else, do some other things? Or is it like you don't have that at all?
Uh, well, no, I mean, I think I deal with, am I making the right choice? But I think that I've made the choice to stay here. I very early on, like when my husband and I were dating, I was like, look, it is very important to me that I have my own career and I'm going to have my business and I am going to stay here. Okay. And he's military, so he's moved. Like we've lived apart. He has lived in Texas, he has lived in Kentucky, like, and we've been married for 13 years, almost 14
Nice.
14 years. So, I think I don't think you can go through life having that. I think that you have to just make your decisions. Like, what is it that you want? Like, that was important to me. I knew I could do that. I knew I could create that here. I know I've traveled enough in the world to know I can go anywhere. I can do anything, but this is what I have chosen to do. And I'm confident in that decision. So,
Okay. Nice. I like that. You niche
yeah.
down. And what do you believe a action that someone can take that can pay dividends for their future?
I mean, always just learning, right? Reading. I'm sure that's a generic answer for everybody, but it's so true. Um, just researching before you jump into anything. Um, Finding something that really just ignites you and that you're passionate about and not jumping into anything just because the world tells you, hey, you know, this is what you should be doing and this is what's going to make you money.
Okay. Nice. And what's the most important lesson you learned this year?
This year,
Yeah.
um, gosh, this year's not over yet, right?
Yeah.
Huh. I don't know. I feel like every day you're learning lessons.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure if I could say the most important lesson that I've learned. I'm constantly learning about people and how to, you know, manage people differently and just I would say just manage people differently and just the different personalities and what motivates people, you know, what doesn't motivate people. It's just ever evolving and it seems like it changes from year to year. So
Okay. Nice. I like that. Like managing people. Learn. There's a lot of things that you can learn from, like I guess talking to people. I'm still working on that too. I just buy a bunch of books about how to communicate, right? How to deal with these types of people. I'm like, this is tough, right? Because this is like a lot of people are not the same. Like they don't respect you back, I guess, in a way, the way they like humans should.
right.
Uh, but
Everybody has their own agenda.
yeah, they do,
Mhm.
and it's you can see it like right there. We're gonna move on uh, to the ending questions after we go through the questionnaire with the guys on top if they have any. So we're gonna go with Andreas here. Andreas, go ahead and ask your question if you have any.
I'm still thinking, can I get a pass?
Yeah, you can get a pass.
I'm sorry.
You're good. I wonder if Devin or Sami's here. If you guys are here, just ask a question because I know they're busy. They're doing like other sorts things right now. If not, we're just gonna move on to the ending questions here. I'll give it 5 more seconds. All
I
right,
got a question.
go ahead.
So like right now, I'm in the spot of just trying to what Nova was saying, what Fahadin was saying, that we're all trying to like get into real estate. And I have some friends also. Do you feel like friends, like getting started with a group of people is, you think that's one of the best things you could do, or you think some things you should, what do you think about like learning real estate through other people at the same time?
Yeah, so I think you mean like jumping in bed and investing with somebody, or learning?
Like partnering up with them. Like you have a friend, y'all have the same goals. Would you be able to, is it good to like get through that process with them, the beginning stages? Do you think it's easier to do it alone, or you should go with friends and do it with people?
Yeah, so I personally never do business with friends, ever.
Okay.
And I've had the same friends for many, many years. And my closest friends, some own like hotels, some do Airbnbs, some are in like building. And I think that it's good that we've never done that. We have all learned from each other. I mean, they are excellent sources of information. One of my best friends owns a real estate company. She is, I mean, so smart, and she owns so many doors, and still, like, she's just a wealth of knowledge to me, and I support her, and I'm going to cheer her on. But it's just one of those things that I'm going to support my friends. I'm going to learn from them, and vice versa. But I've just seen so many friendships end. And I think that in life, like, real friends are so difficult to really find and keep, that it's such a risk to get into business that you could potentially lose, a good friend. And to me, that's not worth that.
Does that answer your question, Andres?
Yeah, that gives me a good answer. Thank you.
Okay. Nice. All right, we're gonna start the ending questions here. So, Lindsey, if you can go back in time, right, and tell your younger self something, what would it be?
I would tell myself to slow down.
Slow down. Okay.
Slow down.
Okay. Is that like slowing down and like enjoying the moment?
Yeah, just slow down. Take your time. It's okay. You'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah. And to be more present. I'm definitely very present now where I'm at in life, but I think I could have been more present in certain points of my life. So.
Okay. I like that. And is there anything that you would like to ask your future self?
What are the Powerball numbers? Yeah. Anything I want to ask my future self? Oh man. I don't know that, probably not. I don't think I want to ask my future self anything, because I think that would then dictate what I'm doing now. And then, knowing my personality, I would start hustling in some other direction, and then not slow down, and then not be present, because my future self would give me an answer.
Okay.
I probably would not want to ask myself anything, unless it's something like, what are the Powerball numbers? So I can, yeah.
Okay. I like that. And what do you think the secret sauce is into becoming successful?
I mean, everybody gives you all those, like, oh, you just got to keep grinding and da, da, da. I think that's a bunch of BS, because I know a lot of people that bust their ass and don't get anywhere. I think you have to, work smart. And I think you have to work smart and hard, and we have to work efficiently. And it's a crapshoot. I mean, it works out for some people and it doesn't work out for others. So I do not believe there is a secret sauce. I think that, people's definition of success varies, right? And so I could never have imagined that I would be where I'm at. If you would have talked to me at 10 years old, like, this would have been like so far of a pipe dream. Like, I would have never have thought I was here. I would have been doing good if I would have been answering phones at a medical office. Like, that would have been great for me. So I think people's definition of success differs. So I think it's a crapshoot, and I think all you can do is your best and work smart, hard, and efficiently as possible, and hope that it works out.
Nice.
Unless you have rich parents that can give you a business that's
You're-
already going.
You're really big on like having rich parents or like having.
Well,
like,
I mean, that's a lot of it though, right?
yeah,
Like,
it is.
truth be told, you know, you either are set up or you have to set yourself up. Like
Yeah.
it's either or, and setting yourself up comes with a lot of risk.
Yeah. I'm guessing you didn't have like the best relationship with your parents.
Well, no, my mother's dead.
Oh, sorry to
not
hear
my
that.
father, so yeah.
Okay. And I'm guessing you said you moved out right after you're 18, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Dang. You're actually doing a lot more than most people would. Like if like you had like again, you said like you have to burn the ships. So you have to just keep going. And
Yeah.
there's no going back. So some of us can relate with that. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I feel like, you know, it's basically, it's one or the other, you know, you either got to make it or
die.
not die, but you know, that's a little morbid.
I know. It's just
Yeah.
funny to me. Is there a quote that you live by?
Again, no. I mean, I guess I could refer to my old MySpace profile, which probably you guys don't know anything
What is
about.
MySpace? I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. No, not really. I don't live by any quotes. I mean, no.
Okay. It's okay now. You're a big book reader. Is there any books you would recommend for certain situations or parts of your life?
For certain situations or parts of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, you know, reading those psychology books
Mhm.
About people are always going to be big. One is, let me think, Surrounded by Idiots. That was one of my favorites.
Never heard of that one. Okay.
Okay, Surrounded by Idiots. It talks about 4 types of human behavior. There's just a generic one called Emotional Intelligence.
Mhm.
That's a good one because I think emotional intelligence is just lacking in general. Drive by Daniel Pink, I think.
Okay.
That's a good one. Am I talking too fast? Are you
No,
ready?
no, I'm just typing like all the books names. I haven't heard Drive either.
Yeah. That's basically about like what motivates us. So it's probably a good one for you guys to read.
Okay. Do you have any other books that you would recommend as well?
I'm right now I'm in the middle of like a tax book, but that's probably not. I'll let you know when I get to the end of that one if it's good. Powerful Phrases for Dealing with Difficult People. That's a good one.
Powerful Phrases? What the heck?
Yeah.
Here's some books I never heard of. Powerful Phrases. Okay. It's by Renee Evanson.
Yeah.
Okay. You got some weird like the likes. You never say like you don't say like the common ones like the like switch or any
Well,
of
I
those.
figure everybody tells you the common ones.
Oh
so
yeah,
I'm giving you different. I mean, I could give you like the basic ones, like you want 48 laws of power, all that. I mean, but these I find more educational, especially with what you're talking about doing. Property management, dealing with people is the biggest part of it. You can figure out how to deal with people. You can figure out how to do anything. And it doesn't necessarily apply to property management. It's really anything in life.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. And right now we will go to the basically spinning the wheel. That's one of our it's a weird thing. I know. I incorporated that in our podcast, right? So basically whatever you get, you basically answer. All right.
I guess this is better than spinning a bottle.
So what are 3 movies you would recommend?
3 movies. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Not a good movie person. Well, I did just watch the Thor movie. That was pretty good.
That was good. Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty good. One of my favorite movies of all time is this is pretty old, but I really like Last of the Mohicans.
What is that? I've never heard of
See,
that.
exactly.
Not to make fun of you, I just never heard of that.
Yeah, it's a great movie. So you should look it up. Go ahead and Google that.
Okay, let's say it again. What is it called?
Last of the Mohicans.
Last of the Mohicans. Okay, 1992.
Yeah, see, it's not that old.
I mean, yeah, it's like almost.
But then I like comedies, like anything. I like all the Will Ferrell, Mark Wahlberg movies as well. Like those are pretty good.
Okay, you like those movies? All right.
Yeah.
Like, what is it, Stepdad or Step?
Stepdad's
Yeah,
hilarious.
that's a good movie.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there anything that you would like to tell your kids? Let's say they're 25 years old and they're listening to this. What would you like to tell them?
At 25,
Let's say 25. Yeah.
just that I love them and I was proud of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like that. And finally, how can people reach out to you?
Well, I'm not big on social media.
Mhm.
But I do have a social media. You can look me up. My name is Lindsey with an E and then Pelaez, or you can just email me, Lindsey at Nest Managers, and I'm on LinkedIn, so you can get me on there.
Nice. What's your LinkedIn account? It's the same.
Lindsey Palaez. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. All right. That's going to end our podcast. And Lindsey, thanks for coming. We enjoyed your
Yeah,
time.
you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And
Bye. Thanks.
bye.